In the outskirts of Paris, where concrete towers rise like silent sentinels and the hum of the city never fades, a boy was born with a fire in his chest. His name was Kylian Mbappé Lottin, and from the moment he could walk, the ball was an extension of him. He grew up in Bondy, a modest neighborhood full of life and noise, where dreams were often crushed before they could grow. But Kylian was different. His father, Wilfried, was a football coach from Cameroon, disciplined, patient, and driven. His mother, Faiza Lamari, a former professional handball player from Algeria, fierce, intelligent, protective. They saw in their son not just talent, but destiny. At 6, he joined AS Bondy, where his father coached. The other children ran. Mbappé glided. He moved with such speed and control that even older players stopped to watch. People said, he was born for this. He studied the game as if it were science. Hours watching videos of Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, Zidane. He memorized movements, angles, body feints. Football wasn't play, it was purpose. At 11, invitations poured in from across Europe. Real Madrid sent scouts. Zidane himself invited him to visit. When Kylian arrived in Madrid, he was overwhelmed, the stadium, the history, the stars. Yet when he met Zidane, he didn't ask for an autograph. He asked, "How do you stay at the top for so long?" But his parents chose patience over glory. They brought him back to France, reminding him, "You must become a man before a legend." At Clairefontaine, France's elite academy, Mbappé became a phenomenon. Coaches described him as too fast for time. He wasn't just quick on his feet, his mind raced even faster. By 16, offers came from everywhere: Chelsea, Real Madrid, PSG. Yet Mbappé chose AS Monaco, believing that true greatness is not found under spotlights, but in the shadows where few watch and fewer believe. He arrived in Monaco not as a star, but as a storm waiting to break. Monaco, a city of elegance, wealth, and sunlight, seemed worlds away from the streets of Bondy. Yet beneath its glittering surface, it was also a place of opportunity. When Kylian Mbappé arrived at AS Monaco in 2013, he was just 16, thin and wide-eyed, but already moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who he was meant to be. The coaches saw something rare. Not just the speed, though he was already among the fastest they had ever timed, but the intelligence. He didn't just run past defenders, he studied them, broke them down, anticipated their panic. They whispered, "He plays like a grown man." By 2015, at only 16 years and 347 days old, he made his professional debut. The youngest debutant in Monaco's history, breaking the record once held by Thierry Henry. And, just like Henry, the boy from Bondy carried the calmness of someone born for big moments. He scored his first professional goal months later. The crowd began to murmur his name, soft at first, then louder, until Mbappé became a roar that echoed through the Stade Louis II. The 2016-17 season changed everything. Mbappé didn't just play, he erupted. Under Leonardo Jardim's fearless attacking system, the teenager became the face of a revolution. Alongside Radamel Falcao, he tore through defenses, scored in Champions League knockout rounds, and helped Monaco dethrone Paris Saint-Germain to win the Ligue 1 title. Europe took notice. His goals against Manchester City and Borussia Dortmund were not just numbers, they were declarations. The world realized this was no ordinary prodigy. He was ruthless, disciplined, and frighteningly mature. At just 18, Mbappé was already one of the most expensive players on the planet. Offers arrived from every powerhouse club. Real Madrid called again. But Paris called louder. When Paris Saint-Germain came knocking, it was more than money. It was home. A return to the city that had raised him. The boy from Bondy would now wear the colors of Paris, and try to make the capital proud. He didn't yet know it, but his next chapter would shape not just his career, but his identity. When Kylian Mbappé arrived in Paris, the world watched. The teenager from Bondy, now one of the most expensive players in history, joined Paris Saint-Germain on loan in 2017, with a transfer fee that would later exceed €180 million. He was only 18, yet the weight of expectation sat easily on his shoulders. The city embraced him as its son returned home. Fans saw him not as a celebrity, but as one of their own who had escaped the concrete maze of Bondy to stand beneath the Eiffel Tower. They said, "He is the future of France." At PSG, Mbappé shared the field with global icons: Neymar, the Brazilian magician; Cavani, the relentless finisher. But Mbappé was not content to play in their shadows. In his very first season, he scored in the Champions League, lifted domestic trophies, and announced himself as the heartbeat of the next generation. He played with joy, but also fury. Every sprint, every shot, every celebration was a statement. He was not waiting to inherit greatness, he was claiming it early. The goals came endlessly, in bursts of lightning pace and clinical precision. His signature move, a sudden acceleration that left defenders frozen, followed by a calm, unshakable finish. His face, still youthful, carried the composure of someone who already understood pressure better than most adults ever would, yet behind the glory, there was constant noise. Critics said PSG's dominance made things too easy, that the true tests lay beyond France. Mbappé listened, but he never replied. He let the ball speak for him. In the dressing room, his voice began to grow louder. He was no longer the wide-eyed boy from Monaco. He demanded more ambition, more fight, more respect. Even among stars, his determination stood apart, and then came 2018, the year that would transform him forever. Because in Russia, wearing the blue of France, Kylian Mbappé would go from prodigy to world champion. The summer of 2018, the world gathered in Russia, and France carried the weight of a nation's expectation. For many, it was the tournament of redemption; for Kylian Mbappé, it was destiny calling early. He was just 19, yet already playing with the composure of a veteran and the fearlessness of a child who had never learned doubt. From the first match, he electrified the tournament. His speed wasn't just fast, it was unnatural, like watching time bend. Against Argentina, he became legend. When he burst through the defense, sprinting half the field before calmly placing the ball past the keeper, even Lionel Messi could only watch. He scored twice that day, and the world whispered the name, Mbappé. He became the first teenager since Pelé to score twice in a World Cup knockout match. Pelé himself took notice, tweeting, "If Kylian keeps equaling my records like this, I may have to dust off my boots again." The boy from Bondy was now walking among giants. France advanced through Uruguay, through Belgium, and finally to the World Cup final against Croatia. The tension, the noise, the storm of a billion eyes watching. Yet Mbappé was calm, smiling even. He played like a man born for the moment. When he struck from outside the box to score France's fourth goal, the stadium exploded. He became the youngest player since Pelé to score in a World Cup final, and the youngest Frenchman ever to lift the trophy. As blue confetti rained over Moscow, Mbappé stood at the center, his arms open, eyes closed. It wasn't arrogance, it was realization. The dream he once whispered in Bondy had come true, but with victory came something heavier than fame, expectation. He returned to Paris a national hero, a global icon, and the face of a new era. And with every headline came the same question: how far can he go? Because greatness achieved early is both a gift and a burden. After Russia, the world saw him differently. Kylian Mbappé was no longer the boy wonder from Bondy. He was a symbol, a millionaire at 19, a world champion before 20. The expectations around him grew heavier than ever. Every match, every gesture, every word was watched, measured, debated. Back in Paris, he continued to deliver goals, titles, records. But inside, a quiet fire burned stronger. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to define an era. He once said, "I don't just want to be good. I want to be great." With Neymar injured, Mbappé became PSG's leader. In 2020, during the pandemic season, he carried the club to its first-ever Champions League final. He was relentless, sprinting through empty stadiums, creating hope when silence filled the stands. They lost to Bayern Munich that night, but something deeper awakened in him, a hunger not for fame, but for immortality. Still, the spotlight is rarely kind. Rumors swirled, Real Madrid wanted him. Fans questioned his loyalty. His every decision was dissected. When he renewed his contract with PSG, he was hailed as a hero by some, accused of greed by others. But the truth was simpler: he wanted to build something lasting in the city that had built him. Then came Qatar 2022. France again reached the World Cup final. This time, Mbappé carried his nation almost alone. Hat-trick. In a final. Against Messi. It was a duel for the ages. He became the first player since Jeff Hurst in 1966 to score 3 goals in a World Cup final. Yet, it wasn't enough. Argentina lifted the trophy. Mbappé, silver medal around his neck, stared into the distance. No tears, just quiet fury. He had scored 8 goals, won the Golden Boot, and reminded the world that even in defeat, he was inevitable. When he returned to Paris, something had changed. He wasn't chasing idols anymore. He was becoming one. As he stepped onto the Bernabeu pitch for the first time, the crowd roared his name, Mbappé. Mbappé. And he smiled that quiet smile again, the same one he had as a boy in Bondi, because for Kylian Mbappé, the story was never just about football. It was about defying gravity, rewriting destiny, and proving that even a kid from the suburbs could become the heartbeat of a generation. And as his career continues, one truth remains: he is still running. Faster than anyone. Chasing not others, but the limits of his own greatness. The stadium lights fade, but his story does not. Somewhere in Madrid, a young man stands at the edge of the pitch, the night air heavy with echoes of the past. He looks up, and for a moment, you can almost see the boy from Bondi staring back at him. Kylian Mbappé has lived 1,000 lifetimes before 26, the prodigy, the champion, the symbol. Yet what defines him is not what he has already won, but what he refuses to stop chasing. Greatness, for him, is not a destination. It is motion. Constant, unstoppable motion. He runs not only for himself, but for those who were told that dreams have boundaries. For the kids playing barefoot on cracked concrete, for the families who believe that talent and will can rewrite the rules of birth and circumstance. He has known triumph and heartbreak, love and envy, glory and doubt. But through it all, he has never stopped moving forward, because to be Kylian Mbappé is to live in the blur between present and legend, a life where every goal is history, and every moment is another step toward eternity. And one day, when the cheers have quieted and the boots are hung, the world will look back on the boy from Bondi and realize, he didn't just play football. He changed its rhythm.